matter. Like, demons are just gonna demon, you know? So
Demons just gonna demon.
Demons just gonna demon, you know?
Like,
Yeah.
Doja Cat has a whole song about it called Demons.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I said what I said. I'd rather demon instead.
I'd rather demon instead.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie.
And Nikisha.
Where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. Jamie's got her Salem shirt on. I got my Ghostface shirt on.
Yeah.
Brian, where's your horror swag? It's October, man.
So I spilled pasta sauce, tomato sauce on my shirt, so it looks like blood. If you're watching on YouTube,
This is true. It is real. He really did do that.
Wow.
looks like I got shanked.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I got for you. I'm a messy boy.
Oh my god. Gorgeous. Okay, well then that passes. You passed the swag test.
Thank you.
Woo. Right. For being messy. Okay. So welcome, guys. Fun episode today. We are knee deep in October, in all the spooky seasons, all the spooky things.
Woo!
It has been a wonderful time, the greatest time of the year, in my humble opinion. And we're keeping it going. So today we're talking about the 2020 supernatural horror film, The Dark and the Wicked. Oh my God!
Wait, we should make sheep sounds. Goats?
I couldn't even begin.
Or chopping noises? Chop, 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 chop,
Oh
chop.
no, not that. Oh, noises make me squirm, and we'll talk about that. Oh, such a crazy scene. Okay, but The Dark and the Wicked, it was directed by and written by Brian Bertino, and it stars Marin Ireland, Michael Abbott Jr., and Xander Berkeley. Now, obviously, heavy spoilers for this. It is streaming on Hulu, so you can go watch it there. And Jamie, tell us about the trigger warnings.
Oh my God, like everything.
There's a lot.
Yeah, this is about demons and possession. So just starting off with that. Also, unpleasant family dynamics is a major theme.
That's a good
so
one.
if you have any like stress around like families that do not get along and there's like a lot of distance and things like that, estranged families, that's like a major theme in this. There's also a hanging. There's also some like a lot of self-mutilating in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
And some nudity, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's also references to dead children. And just a lot of self-harm, like shooting self in head.
Also,
Stabby.
Xander Berkeley played Trevor in Candyman, who is Helen's terrible husband. So if you have triggers
A trigger to
from Candyman and Trevor, this is also will do that for you.
Didn't know. Happy to know. That's wild. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll get into all of that. Of course, discussion about a lot of epically disturbing things. So if that's not your vibe, maybe skip to another podcast. Listen, we got plenty. We got over 100 now, guys. So
We
pick
do.
one.
I'm very proud of you. We're very proud of us.
We're proud of us. Hashtag doing our best. I think
Doing our
we're
best.
doing our best.
Doing our best.
Grand. But before we get into all of those things for this episode, producer Brian, can you please give us some words?
Absolutely. Happy halfway through October at this point. Maybe we're a little bit further than halfway, but thank you again for joining us. I'm very excited to do this one, this movie. But if you want to find us on social media, at Talk Horror Pod, we are everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky now, Threads. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. Again, you can find us on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Hi.
Just YouTubing it. And then, very exciting stuff. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one, Nikisha. Like, seriously.
Same. Also, it's so funny because in watching this, sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe after we have a conversation, I'll feel different about particular movies. But it's also just like, I have my own opinions about things. But sometimes when we talk about stuff, it kind of like sways it into, okay, I can understand your point of view. So it makes me have a more appreciation of the thing. So I'm very excited for us to have a discussion about this. But first, y'all, I have to tell you, I'm still in my Walking Dead journey. And we
what happened?
finished season 6 and watched the first episode of season 7. And spoiler for Walking Dead, we got to the point where Steven Yeun's character passes, and
That's the last thing I saw.
Whoo!
So you're at the point where people stopped watching.
I believe that.
A huge percent of I did not, because I'm a masochist. But people stopped watching.
Yeah.
The end.
I was done.
Yeah, it was so hard to watch and way more gruesome. I don't know. I was talking to somebody about this today, actually, because we know that Walking Dead is gruesome, right? We see the bodies, like the bodies of the dead, and there's like guts hanging out and like all the things, and you kind of get used to that. But seeing such detailed footage of like him dying and him trying to talk to Maggie while he literally has like an eye falling out of his face was gut wrenching. But that makeup, fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah.
It was definitely hard for me to sleep that night.
How are you feeling about the show? Because you're binging it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still feeling like same thing, different community, or you feel like you're moving into something? Like, I'm just curious how you feel right now.
I feel like season 6 was a turnaround because I was getting the, oh my God, they're in a new community. It's only going to last for so long. And then they have to move somewhere else. Like that's been kind of the past couple of seasons. But with season 6, it was more of like the moral dilemma that was really the forefront of like, you have Morgan's character who's trying to like save people who are bad, who are killing like his friends and stuff. And, you know, Rick is in his own moral dilemma of like, I'm just going to kill everybody because I'm trying to make it like my people safe. And so I think that dynamic made me excited about the series again. But I will say, like I said, we watched the first episode of season 7 and it introduces that king guy with the tiger. And I was like, this is so far left. Yeah, King Ezekiel or whatever. It's like, what is about to happen? So I understand. But, you know, the same way, and I'm about to spoil like earlier seasons of Grey's Anatomy too, when George died, that's when I stopped watching Grey's Anatomy because that was like too much of a main character, you know.
Was that the one where is that the one where they didn't know it was him because he was so brutalized, and then like Meredith figures it out?
Yep. Because he got like hit by a bus, but he was covered all in bandages and nobody knew like who this, and it was like John Doe the whole show, the whole episode until the end, and it was like, it's fucking George. And I was like, all right, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So we'll see if I continue on in The Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon has his own like spin-off show. Yeah. So I think I might just read what happens in the rest of The Walking Dead and then start watching Daryl.
You're good. You're done with Walking. What do you mean?
Well, okay, I was watching it with my friend Jen Sussey, who plays Peggy, and now she's moving to the Broadway company, and so it was like kind of our thing to do together. So, but then after seeing that and hearing that everybody falls off of it, I don't know if I want to keep going or not.
I am here to advocate for you to continue.
Okay.
I think that it's worth it. I'm going to be honest. For me, watching week to week, the next maybe season and a half are same difference, like whatever. But there's a point, I think in like season, like I forget what season it is, where like certain characters do certain things and it kind of refreshes the thing, and it actually is way more enjoyable. So you might go through a little bit of meh for a bit, but then it gets pretty good. So that's my suggestion. Obviously do whatever you want.
Yeah. No, we'll see. I mean, if I'm in the mood for zombies, then I know
You know where to go.
I know where to go. Fantastic.
Well, Nikisha, are you ever in the mood for Jamie, what are those things called that you look at yourself in and they reflect back at you?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh, do you mean a mirror or mirrors?
Oh, I mean Mirrors from 2008.
Oh, I've never even heard of that movie. Wow.
Yes, you absolutely have. It's definitely on a Watch Mojo.
Okay.
Without a doubt, for like a memorable death scene.
Please tell me. I want to know. I'm curious now.
Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen this movie that came out quite some time ago, but it is and it's something that still like has seared into my brain that I will not forget. It is Amy Smart sitting in a bathtub while her mirror version slowly rips her jaw apart with her own hands and like fully removes her jaw, and it's just tongue hanging out. It's
Eek.
fucking gruesome.
The movie stars Kiefer Sutherland as a former police officer who becomes a security guard at this like haunted, like abandoned place, and there's something inside the mirrors, and it starts like haunting his family through the mirrors. It's fucking terrible. And I love it.
Okay, but you enjoyed it. It was like a terribly good time.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
I was a first time watch for me. I definitely had a good time, and we had to pause it halfway through, and we saw there were 40 minutes left, and I was like, how are there 40 more minutes in this fucking movie? How are there 40 more minutes? But then there were. Paula Patton is in it. It's
Paula Patton?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Do
I'll
not
have to take a gander.
Yeah, this is not something that goes to the top of your list. This is something that you and your dad might watch together.
Great. I'll tell him. I will absolutely tell him. He'll love it, I'm sure.
Oof.
Well, wonderful. Okay, well, let's get into The Dark and the Wicked, because that's why you guys are here. But we need a plot summary, a little refresher, and we have our producer Brian here to do that for us.
What's the plot?
So
Good thing he's here to do that for us.
Okay.
All right. Mr.
I honestly,
Producer.
I forgot I had to do this. So I'm nervous now because, okay.
well, there's not. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I believe in you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you just have to be confident in yourself.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So, producer Brian, you have exactly 2 minutes on the clock to give us your best description of what is the plot of The Dark and the Wicked. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Ready, set, go.
The Dark and the Wicked is about a family in Texas. The father is sick and he gets worse, and the mother is his caretaker. The two kids, their son and their daughter, come to the house in order to kind of help out. They have a strained relationship. The daughter has a strained relationship, specifically with the brother and everybody else. But they're older kids. They're not like teenagers. They're older. Anyway, the dad gets worse, so they come down. But the mom tells them that they should not have come because what we learn early in the movie is that there is something dark and wicked about on their ranch. We as an audience member see like glimpses and flashes of something nefarious in the background. There's lots of sheep around. Anyway, the mother cuts her fingers off and then hangs herself. And basically every single thing that this dark and wicked thing touches ends up trying to kill itself. So it's kind of like passing through everybody. Then there's a priest who comes and says he knows the family, and talks a little bit about, wanting them to they talk to the mother. He's a very nefarious again, but it turns out that they don't know him, and he doesn't know them, and the kids are realize that the mom's not religious, so like this is a weird experience. Anyway, the brother's like, I gotta get the hell out of here, because they start seeing other people show up, and it's very scary. So he goes back to his family, and he ends up killing himself because the demon actually made him see his family dead. He killed himself, but his family wasn't there. And in the end, the father ends up dying, and the sister is taken by the demon. The end of
Good
The Dark
job.
and the Wicked.
Wow, you still have 10 seconds.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, like the father gets up out of bed. Like there's a lot of creepy things that happen that have to do with like this dark and wicked thing, like showing itself to these kids, whether it's through someone they know or through something else, through death.
Yep.
That's the plot.
That's it. And a lot of dying sheep and goats and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it kills the sheep and the goats. It makes it kills the ranch hand that they hired. Like, but they all kill themselves and stuff like that. So that's the dark
Yeah.
and the wicked.
Oof. And just to clarify, this is everyone's first time seeing this?
No,
Oh, okay. Jamie, you saw this.
Yeah, Brian and I both saw this before.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Beautiful gowns. Okay, well, let's get into it with our first segment of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
Okay, actually, Jamie, I would like to hear your thoughts about this first.
Yeah,
How
sure.
you felt about this and why you guys chose to do this again for the podcast.
Yeah, I don't remember why we chose to do this again for the podcast, but
I think it was just on our list of things we wanted to do, and we were looking for more independent stuff. And
Oh, fair.
I wanted to watch this one again because when we get to me, I'll talk about that. I think Jamie has very similar opinions.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first time we saw this, I remember, as I've mentioned many times on the podcast before, I like my horror movies to not end with so much despair. And that's not quite what you get when you watch The Dark and the Wicked. It's a real bummer. That's
It's
the
a
best
minute
way
and
to
30 of
describe.
bummer.
Yeah, it's a long bummer of a film. And so the first time I saw this, I kind of was just like really shook by like everything that transpired, and then was just feeling real meh, and like had a really hard time getting into it. Mostly because there's a lot that feels totally unwarranted and unjustified. Again, we've talked about this in other horror movies where like if there are bad things happening to people, it doesn't bother me as much if for whatever reason it feels like they deserve it, or like, narratively they give you a better reason for it. And I feel like with this one, from the first watching, I was like, why is this happening to these people? Like, they're not even religious. It doesn't even make sense.
Yep.
And that's why I was really curious what you were going to think about this, Nikisha.
Well,
However,
sorry, go ahead.
no, you go first, because I have a big, my however is like big.
Okay. So now it's interesting. I didn't realize that you guys had already watched this.
Yeah.
So my exact thing, that was a like and a huge gripe for me, Jamie, was why is this happening? I need a reason. But on the other side of it, it's more unsettling that I don't know why this is happening to these people, because then it kind of brings in the idea of like anything can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter. Like demons are just going to demon, so
Demon's just gonna demon.
demon's just going to demon,
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doja Cat has a whole song about it called Demons.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I said what I said. I'd rather demon instead.
I'd rather demon instead.
I think I took some liberties with her lyrics.
I love it. This, but yes, that was the main thing. Like you took the words out of my mouth, Jamie. This first watch, it felt meh. There were things that I liked about it visually and stuff like that. And mine is really quick, so I'll just go ahead and go. Sorry, I don't even know why I was pretending to go first.
Go. You go
Sorry.
first. It makes the most sense.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, Jamie, you just set me up, so this was great.
Perfect.
I liked the opening credits and of the going back and forth from the actual scenes of the movie and the pictures of the house and stuff like that into the opening credits. I liked that it set up that atmosphere of like, what the hell is going on with this? I love that we get flashes of the entity like at the beginning, and I love a day-to-day setup. I want to know, okay, on Monday this is happening.
Me too.
Tuesday,
yes.
great. You know,
Especially because at the beginning he's like, "How long you staying?" He's like, "I'll probably be here like a week, maybe till Monday or
right.
whatever he says." I'm like, "Here we go, yeah."
It's like, this is what I need.
Will you be here alive until Monday?
Could you last?
Yeah.
You know, yes. So it's just kind of like the structural part of my brain that's like, absolutely, I want to know like what is the day to day that is happening leading up to the end of the movie, whatever the end might be. I am realizing that noises bother me more than visuals because when the mom is cutting off her fingers, which was a gruesome scene, it was the squishy noises that really was just kind of like so unsettling to me. And it was like, okay, if I had this on mute, like I would be able to kind of take it in a little bit more. And maybe it's just because of all the Walking Dead that I've watched, but
Sure.
it was the combination of just like her, not only like the sound, but like the continuous sound, because she kept chopping at those fingers. And I was like, I can't deal with this right now. And it was literally after like my Thursday, Friday, Saturday was, Thursday, Walking Dead, watching Steven get mutilated. Friday, watching like, Saw X, and then Saturday watching this. So it was just a lot of like blood and gore. So by the time that happened with her fingers, I was like, I think I'm done with gore for the next. Somebody give me Coraline. Somebody give me Haunted Mansion, Disney. Like I can't right now. So that was crazy. I thought that the score of this was really kind of beautiful. I never really thought a lot about scores in horror movies the past couple of ones that we've watched. Sure. But I really enjoyed the music, even the ones that were leading up to the tension and the jump scares of it all. I just thought that it was a beautiful score. I really enjoyed it. I liked the light scene. There's a lot of scenes that I liked, but it just, I guess the whole storyline was just a little meh for me, like I said, because I literally was thinking like, what is happening? There's 30 minutes left. Like, why is this entity attacking them? How did he get to them? The priest isn't real. He didn't actually visit them. Like, what's going on? And I did like the hallucinations of it all, but without having a singular idea of why or a reason why, it was just hard to really latch on to everything that was happening, even though I liked a lot of the visuals. So yeah, it just left me a little bit of meh feeling, and it was really kind of just like you said, Jamie, a downer that everyone just dies at the end, because this thing is just attacking them and they all die at the end. It's not even like, if I wasn't going to get a reason as to why this was going to happen, at least let somebody survive it all so that we can have like some form of a happier ending. But it was just kind of like, nope, this entity came for no reason that we know or can even like think up in our brains about, and everybody's gone now. So that's the end of it. It's this a story about this family that just comes and goes because of this thing. So yeah, those are my bigger thoughts about the movie. So Jamie, sorry, you can continue on with your like.
No, so like that was very much like how I felt the first time I watched this, and then going into it this time, I was like, ugh. Like even my notes, I was like, I didn't remember what happened to the mom. Finger chopping, ew.
Yes.
And then I literally wrote, I remember the ending is sad, so I have mixed feelings about this movie because I couldn't remember exactly like how things unfolded, but remembered like how I felt after watching this. And then and I have a lot of other notes, but then the priest showed up, and we paused the movie and we were like talking about our feelings about it from last time, and we both were like, wait a minute, like there's something important here, because we remembered at that point, I was like talking out loud trying to process what I could remember from the first time watching it, and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't the real priest. And and so we were talking about that, and I was like, this is the demon fucking with them. So this conversation is really important, and we should rewind it and restart this conversation and watch it more closely, because this is the demon having a conversation with the people that he's like actively haunting to figure out what's the why behind it, because they are coming from the perspective of like, we are not religious, our family is not religious, yet there is something like that seems to be very religious adjacent happening that doesn't make sense to us. So we're calling in you, the priest, or like you actually, he just showed up, but like you seem to know what's going on. So like there's two things happening in this conversation. There's the first take, which is what you talked about, Nikisha, and how I feel like I felt the first time, and I think Brian did too, where you're just like, this doesn't make any sense because these people don't deserve it. Not that like needing to believe or being religious then means that they deserve it. It just seems so disconnected.
Yes.
But then listening to what the priest said, and I didn't write down exactly what he said, but he basically said like, it doesn't matter if you believe or not. He also said like, he basically was like, it doesn't matter if you believe, like he's already here. So like, and that in that case it was true, because like he was the demon, but he also said like they were alone, and like that's the justification. Like it doesn't matter that you believe or not. Like that's enough of an explanation to explain a vulnerability, and that's all that it took. But it's very hard. I will say like, maybe people got that in the first go around. I didn't. Nikisha, it doesn't sound like you did, and I don't think Brian did either. So it's like maybe some people were picking up on that, and like we just didn't. But I find that it made me like this movie so much more than I did the first time. Yeah. But I don't think that I don't think it's great that you have to watch it more than once in order to understand that. And that kind of moves a little bit into my gripe, even though I definitely have a much different understanding and appreciation for this movie with paying more attention to that specific conversation.
Yeah, and if I can jump in here as well, he says a wolf is a wolf. So like, it doesn't, like, I like the idea that they are not religious, but I like that this movie takes the stance that like religion is real, or the devil and God are real, whether you believe in them or not. And and you know, and also, you know, I also asked the question of like, why is this happening now? Like, why do they want David's soul now? Like, what does it matter? And the real answer is like, he took a turn for the worse, and all of a sudden the devil had new souls in that house to torture and take, and all of that. And you know, there's things to talk about, like, in terms of like, you know, he drained David's soul so much that like then he started to like latch onto the mother, and then the other guy, and then them, and then the nurse, and then her. Like, he just like moves through them because they're isolated. There's nothing else. And you know, I completely and wholeheartedly agree with Jamie in that scene, and this movie was way better the second time as a whole, because like so a lot of the stuff sticks with you, like some of the special effects and stuff, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like it's annoying that it's like, I definitely paid attention to this movie the first time. How did I like not get that? But I do. It made it easier, not easier, but like I was able to sit through it with a different understanding than the first time, where I was just like, this just sucks. Why does so much bad is happening for what? Bad. Even like, it's just like it makes it so much harder to watch. Some other notes I wrote: creepy goat jump scare. I also wrote, why mannequins? I thought something was going to happen with the mannequins, and then nothing really did. I mean, mannequins are creepy, but I just felt like they were really underutilized here.
I was thinking that too, and I think they obviously help with some jump scares and stuff like that. But
Sure.
I think it also did a good job of showing how alone they were potentially. Like there are these other bodies there, but like only
they're not really
of them have
bodies.
souls.
Yeah.
No,
Something else I really liked about this movie is a lot of times in movies, you have the setup is like they're these estranged family members, and then they come together, and it's like, oh, we were apart, but now we're together, and like we have triumphed over our estrangement. I like that that's not what happens here at all. And they continue to all be super estranged from each other. The only thing the mom can communicate to her children when they come is, you shouldn't have come. You shouldn't be here. You should leave. And she can't even explain why, which is a gripe of mine when there's very clear ways to communicate about things. She did not. That's on her. You know, chop your fingers up. You should have said something.
Open up your mouth. Communicate.
Just say something.
Yeah.
Yes. If you see something, say something. That's what
Yeah,
the sign
exactly.
says. Yes.
However, I do like that it's like, just because you're coming together in a moment of a family crisis where like someone is having a real health scare, that doesn't suddenly like solve everything. That these are long-standing relationship issues that have been this way for so long in all ways. Like even then when the mother dies, the brother and sister aren't necessarily any closer because at the end the brother bails on his sister in the worst moment possible. He just up and leaves her. But obviously, like, as we know, it's too late anyway because they've already spent so much time there that, like, they're doomed. So it's, like, their soul has already been, you know, tampered with, I guess, for X amount of time. But it's, like, I think that is a more realistic element of, like, human behavior. And yeah, it's just like it's unfixable, and just because they're back home does not change that at all. It felt way more realistic. Something that I did not think was realistic was the random spider that comes out of the dad's mouth. It was really fake looking and super distracting. Another thing that I have mentioned I don't like because it upsets me is I don't like when people pee themselves. And you get some of this, and then you get someone moving their head around real weird, and I don't like that either. I don't like mouth things. I don't like weird head jiggles, and I really don't like when people pee themselves.
Yes.
One thing that wasn't really clear to me, because I messed that up. I thought that I forgot who the farmhand was, and I thought that guy was the priest. But I guess the priest never had any contact with the demon at all. The only person that outreaches him is the daughter. And then the priest thinks that she's playing like some mean-spirited joke on him anyway.
Mean-spirited?
Ooh.
Mean spirits.
What I don't understand sometimes is like random nudity. Why has the mom got to be naked? Like, she didn't die that way.
Exactly.
So, like, why has she got to be spooking around with no clothes on? Like,
well, yeah. Aren't the rules of ghosting, like, whatever outfit you die in is the one that you ghost in?
Yeah.
So what I hear is you always need to be dressed like you're gonna die that day.
Exactly.
Yeah, so don't die in the shower.
No, don't die in the shower. Don't die, I don't know, like at your job. Like you know, if you have a uniform, don't die at the circus. I don't know. There's a lot of places that
Circus?
If you're a clown, like you don't want to like all of a sudden be like, yeah. Or like if you like work at Home Depot, like you kind of, I guess you don't want to like die with like your apron on. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, my only point was I didn't understand why the mom needed to be naked. Her brother is a big ol' asshole for leaving.
I was gonna ask how y'all felt about it.
Oh man, that's so, again, something you can communicate very easily. Hey, I'm fucking done here. I'm leaving. Like, just, that's literally all you had to say. The fact that he left without waking her, telling her anything. And left her alone in that house is so fucked up. That's like one of the worst things that I've seen in any movie. I thought that there was a really interesting conversation from the like home health aide nurse that came where she was talking a lot about like love and like needing love as a form of protection, and then like once the love is gone, then you're vulnerable. And I think that there's like very little, again, going back to the relationships, like there's very little love that it seems that they have for one another at this point. So like, you know, the daughter is staying out of obligation, it seems, especially according to the brother, because she yells like, why could you do this? And he's like, I know that you would have stayed. And like, it's so selfish that he says that in that moment. But it also, it's not totally clear if she's staying out of love or just like out of like, she's the only one left. So what other option is there for her? And I don't think that like protects her in the end. I think that that's why she continues to be vulnerable, because like she's not doing it out of love. She doesn't really have a choice anymore. And that's really it. And I think that like in the same moment that her brother chooses to leave is also this like ultimate, like there is no love left in this family. They're all fully disconnected from one another. And like, that is the culmination of like everything that happens at the end. So I thought that was really interesting. I also thought it was interesting that the nurse herself was religious. Because then when she is possessed, it's not totally clear to me if she is just possessed, or there's a part that kind of feels like she's treating it like she thinks she's being possessed by God or Jesus. That was my perception this time around, where she's like I feel you. That's what she's saying, and but like in like an accepting, like I'm letting you in kind of way. And it's like, is she under the impression that what she's letting in is God, but it's actually like not God. So I'm not totally sure if that's the case. I don't even know if that's like an apt reading, but that was just something I was thinking about this time around, just because her reaction is like so like intense and like just feels
in that moment I just from the first watch took it as she kind of knew what her demise was, and because she was like dying, she just felt like she was getting closer to God, like going to heaven, because she's like about to die. So for me, I just read it as like the demon possessed her and she stabbed herself in the eyes, and like she's gonna die, you know, like she's already done so much self-harm to herself, like she's about to die. And so I guess it felt like she was accepting like death and being like, all right, God, I feel you, because like this has just happened. I know I'm dying, so like I'm about to go ascend into heaven, I guess, you know. But I don't know.
But
it's a lot of crazy things.
Yeah. My only other note is that I thought that the brother's wife's scream acting was bad.
I have to go
just
back
didn't
now,
buy
so I
it.
didn't pay attention to it.
I just didn't buy it. She was just like, it was just like, ah! And I was like, okay, not believable. Not believable. Yep. Those are my thoughts.
Work. All right, Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I agree with Jamie wholeheartedly. This movie was so much better the second time, specifically because of that scene. I just think without knowing that twist a little bit, like of that scene where it's not actually him, they're actually legitimately talking to the demon. And then you kind of forget what he says a little bit. Like, knowing what the twist is so you can pay more attention to it definitely helped. I also loved the beginning, Nikisha, of all the shots of the house. The sound design is amazing. The evil in the sheep, that one shot is incredible. I actually remembered the opening of this movie more than I remembered anything else from this movie. A lot of it is beautifully shot, just with like either the foreground blurry and you have them in the background, or vice versa. I just thought it was really lovely. He says, I'll be here a week, Friday maybe. And I love the same thing, Nikisha, that all of that. And also, it ends on a Sunday, God's Day, which I thought was very interesting. I love when she's walking through the house and you see the shadow of the demon behind her, and she like goes to the front door, it's already in the house, and then when she comes back, it's her mom in the same spot. I thought that was spectacular. Man, the finger scene that you two have both talked about already, the sound design, Nikisha, I totally agree. You know it's coming. Oof. And like that sound, you're just waiting for it. And then it's just really, really well done.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that the chair keeps following her. You know, and I think it's the demon just the way the demon gave him the like knife, or the demon gave him the shotgun. The demon was giving her the chair to hang herself, like tempting her with that. I like that. I love that the goats break the trees. Not the trees. The goats break the bottle alarm when they're jumping. I like that. I love that the feeling of this is just lonely and depressed. Everyone just feels so sad and lonely, which I think makes it more believable why they'd be so vulnerable to this entity. I wrote, mannequins are scary. Blood on the mannequins. I don't remember what that means, but I'm sure there was blood on the mannequins at some point.
Maybe.
Yeah. There's some really good scares. The decor of the house with the skulls really adds to the tone of this film. My thought was that because the dad has gotten worse, now the demon is out for more alive people because he's been feeding on the father for so long. And I love what Jamie said, like what the nurse said about love. Like, they were able to fend the demon enough because the mother genuinely loved the father. And then you have this kind of weird obligatory false love in the house, which allows everyone to be more vulnerable, as there's more like angst and anger in the house when the kids get there. And you know, the kids did visit, so it left everybody open to it. I don't remember why I wrote playing with food, but I don't remember why I wrote that. But the devil is playing with his food, like when he's talking to them as the priest, he's playing with them. He's like he's literally playing with his food. Yes. Wolf is a wolf. I also like that it takes place in Texas, which is a very religious place. But you have this one family who's not religious in the sea of religion, and the idea is just because you don't believe it doesn't mean that the devil's not out there.
Yeah.
I really liked all that. I had a question. Do we think the same demon, killed the priest's daughter? You know what I mean? That he's still torturing him. I really loved that scene that, like, you know, are you messing with me? Like, it's my daughter's name, like all of that stuff. I don't think we have an answer or need an answer. I just thought that was fascinating. Yeah. The son definitely got possessed. The son gets possessed in the barn at the end, or he's being attacked to be possessed, but he is able to resist the devil in that moment, or enough that he can just like be a full mind and body. But he needs his family to help because he calls his wife afterwards, and his wife gives him the support and all of that. But it's still too little, too late because he goes home and all of that happens. You know, when Michael leaves out of the false love, it affects the nurse at the end, and she gives that speech. And in the end, the daughter's just alone, like you said. And like this, I would argue that this is actually more of a demon home invasion movie than it is anything else.
Yes.
And then some of my gripes are some of the special effects. When they're not practical, some of the special effects don't work for me in this one. This is a gripe and a like. Why did the ranch hand, Charlie, I think his name was. Yep, Charlie. Why did he see the daughter?
Yeah, like, I was wondering that too.
My thought, and I don't know if this is based on anything, but it's like maybe he had a crush on her. You know, like he'd been working on the farm for so long, and like he sees the daughter grow. Like that could have been like that's what he sees. I don't know. Like why didn't he see his granddaughter? I don't know why he saw her. But I'm sure there's like an unspoken like character thing that like doesn't need to be spoken about. They're just interesting in that moment. And I just a little bit of why, even though they explain it. But and then my favorite quotes from this are. The one of them says it's gonna be okay, and the other one says like what's gonna be okay. I liked that a lot. And then she says a soul needs love to keep it safe. That's what the nurse says, and then she decides to do some crocheting of her eyeballs. Anyway.
Gross.
It's so gross.
But I like this movie way better the second time. I think it has some really dark and wicked imagery. I think it's very engaging. I think it's a little bit of a slow burn that paid off way more the second time than the first time.
Well, even you just like Jamie just saying the fact that going back to the priest's speech of you guys were just alone and isolated. I think we talked about this before where but we were bringing up the strangers or saying like we're just coming at you because you were home, you know, like type thing.
Yeah.
So it feels like that makes more sense of the same vibe of like you're just isolated, and so
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, like lions pick off the sickly part of the herd. Like the demon picked off the sickly one, and he makes his way through everything else.
yeah, yeah. So that's understandable. I think that gives more of a perspective of like why everything is happening. Cool. Well, let's move on to our next segment. Brains. Tasty.
Tasty.
Always Fergalicious on this podcast. So, my first question, Jamie, is what are some ways that you could take care of yourself as you're taking care of a terminally ill family member? Like, can you even mentally prepare to take on the toll of like caring for a loved one who is dying, or mentally even prepare for their inevitable passing? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is really hard, but also like a really important part of being like the caretaker for somebody else is making sure you're making time for yourself, because it's very taxing, and like also there's the risk of compassion fatigue where like you start to become desensitized and like lose the compassion for who you're caring for because you're not also taking care of yourself. So like that's something that's at risk. I think also just like burning yourself out generally. So like making sure that you are still operating with boundaries, making sure that you are taking like time that's protected time just for you to like do things that make you feel good. You know, continuing to have like your support system that exists like outside of this too. That could also include therapy, you know, just putting it out there.
Just a little boop,
but
therapy.
I think like having the mindset of like I also need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself while like going into this is really important.
Fantastic. On a different note, what are some ways that a person could separate themselves from toxic family members that might be negatively affecting their mental health? And I am just thinking about the brother who was like, okay, I have to piece up out of here because this is too crazy and I want to be like with my family. So how can somebody like separate themselves from kind of a toxic family environment? Maybe not necessarily in relation to demons coming after their family.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, definitely stay away from demons if you can.
Still a
but
loaded
if you
question, regardless.
if you happen to be related to some demons,
right.
I mean, it can be really hard because like depending on what your family like rules are, like every family unit has their own rules. They have their own like traditions and customs and expectations. So, and also like what is the degree of closeness? Because like it is really hard to remove yourself from people that you're related to. And there's a lot of also like societal expectations of like, oh, well, your family. So like you have to like, but ultimately like you don't have to do shit. Like there's no rule. There's no like you don't have to do diddly squat. There is no rule that makes you obligated to anybody. And like it might be more difficult because you share like biology with somebody, but that doesn't oblige you to like have to have a relationship with them if it's not healthy, if it's not working for you. I think boundaries again go a really long way. Like having boundaries protects relationships. This is like verbatim what I say to the people I work with. Boundaries protects relationships because boundaries prevent resentment. Without boundaries, you grow resentful of the people that like you feel like you're being taken advantage of. You feel like you are like not being prioritized. That is going to directly impact your relationship with that person. If you want to salvage that relationship in any way, boundaries is how you do it. And it doesn't mean that you like fully throw up a wall and like disengage. Maybe that's what you feel like you need, and that's okay. But that's not the only thing that boundaries means. It means like saying no. You don't have to always say yes to them. It doesn't, again, mean saying no all the time unless like that feels necessary. But like, you know, what is the balance of like taking the time for you to evaluate, does it make sense for me to do this right now? Do I have the bandwidth to do this right now? Can I take this on? What would it do for me if I did this? Would this like cause me more undue stress and like make it harder for me to do this? Like did this person think about that before they asked me to do this? Or are they just like putting that on me? So like taking the time to decide whether or not it makes sense for you to like do certain things. And ultimately, if it doesn't, like you are allowed to say no. That being said, just because you're saying a boundary does not magically make them respected or heard or listened to. So I think like managing expectations around that too, knowing that like it's not a guarantee that it will be listened to, but it doesn't make it any less important to try to implement it. So I would say boundaries is a big one. I also am a fan of this tool or technique called like the gray rock technique. It works really well for folks that are more toxic. I would even say like might have some narcissistic characteristics, where basically you are like disengaged. You are only answering like exactly what's being asked of you. Yes, no, you're not giving any more than that. You're not giving into like, you're not sharing your feelings. Like you essentially become as boring as a gray rock. That's where that comes from. But it can work really well with more toxic folks because like there's likely this desire to get a reaction out of you and you are not giving them what they're looking for. So it is like very disengaged and not giving into like that type of reaction. So that can be a helpful way sometimes if you have to engage with somebody that's toxic. That can sometimes be a little bit easier to like navigate and maneuver some of those interactions.
I love it all. Those are all great answers.
Thank you.
Yes. Fantastical. You guys, boundaries are amazing. If I could throw a book out there, there's a book called Setting Boundaries, Finding Peace by the therapist Nedra Webb. And it is a great tool in mapping out setting boundaries in romantic relationships, in family dynamics, and friendship dynamics. And it is something that Jamie said can help in so many different ways. So wonderful things, beautiful gowns. Love it. Last question I have, Jamie, and this is purely just for me. I was thinking about what I said earlier about sounds affecting me more than visuals. And then that made me think like, is there a phobia for like sounds? But then I was thinking to myself, are there therapists who specialize in different phobias? So like if I have whatever the fear of like arachnophobia, like, or fear of small spaces, or like, is there a therapist that I could potentially go to that would help me in those endeavors?
So I think that there are therapists who, like, I'm an anxiety therapist, but I don't necessarily specialize in like working with specific phobias. Okay. There are therapists that do work with phobias. I think there are also therapists that like can have maybe an even more specific niche of like very specific phobias. So I think you might have a harder time like finding some of those just because it is more specific depending on what you're looking for. But also I find that most of the time therapists who work with people with phobias generally, there's like particular tools and strategies that are really helpful. So like, I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but I don't know how much it matters that I think sometimes having the knowledge around whatever that specific type of phobia is, like agoraphobia versus a different type of phobia, there are like unique things to consider. But also I think that there typically are like very specific modalities that work well with all phobias. So I imagine a therapist that specializes in working with like generally different phobias is probably well versed to do most of them.
Mark, nice.
Is my guess.
General phobia.
General phobia.
General phobia. Fantastic. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Thank you, Jamie. So, should we rotten tomatin?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Yeah.
Rotten tomatin.
Let's Rotten Tomatin this. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
67.
Jamie?
57.
57. Wow.
Oops.
This is a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes.
What?
The audience scores is 63.
Okay.
Okay.
The Dark and the Wicked deliver its title with an unsettling horror story whose deep dread and bleak outlook further compound its effective jolts.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. So here's what do you think this has on Letterboxd? So again, 1 through 5, these are just like, their users rating this movie 1 out of 5. Again, it's anywhere from 1 to 5 with decimal points in between. So what do you think the average is on this one?
3.8.
I was going to say 3.7.
All right, it's a 3.1. So this is a 3.1 here, which is it's actually a 3.06 based on almost 29,000 reviews. But it rounds up to a 3.1. And if you were interested, here are some of the top reviews on Letterboxd of this movie. If this had the A24 logo, people would be all over it. That is the most liked review.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I get it.
Someone else said 2.5 stars. I'm getting pretty sick of this streak of self-conscious trauma as horror. Here's another one, 3.5 stars. I feel like people are going to really love this or absolutely hate this.
Yeah.
For some reason, a person possessed by a demon sounds kind of sexy in a southern accent. Come outside. Come outside.
I'm dead. I also was like really trying to accept or pick up on the southern accents because sometimes it was just a little bit too much for me. I mean, it just makes me think about like dialect classes when you kind of go over the top with like how far you do the accent, and it just felt a little over the top for me. But yeah,
Sure.
And then one of my favorites, 1.5 stars. Did this movie deadass try to pass off the act of scrubbing a stain off a sink as scary?
That's funny.
it was her mom's blood. It was a
Oh,
moment.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
Okay. The 4 S's are skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. 1 through 10. We're going to rank skulls, which is how this movie handles mental health and human behavior. Scares, how scary was it? Shakes, how much is it going to stay with you? And then we'll give our suggestions. But Jamie, why don't you go first with your numbers?
Sure. So for skulls, I gave this a 5 because I feel like people made a lot of terrible choices repeatedly. I think, again, like so much of this could probably be resolved if people had communicated openly and effectively. And so like by not doing that, it's like this movie probably would look very differently and maybe shorter. But
Go home. There's a demon. Okay, bye.
Right.
Please.
So like I feel like that really impacts things. Yeah, just like if there was better communication between people, then would that have resolved things? But also like, am I being too harsh? And because there is some reality to their interactions together, does that mean that like this is actually more realistic? I don't know. I'm still giving it a 5. For scares, I gave this a 6 because this movie really freaks me out. I found it very startling and just like very tension building. especially after like it comes in really hot in the beginning, and then just this like constant dread, and the daughter's getting like just bombarded with crap all the time.
Yeah.
And I also think like the idea that all of these people that aren't real people keep showing up and scaring them is very spooky. So I gave it a pretty high score. And for Shakes, I upped it during our conversation. I think I'm gonna give it a 6 because I really again like I appreciate this movie a lot more on a second watch. And a lot of it has really been sticking with me, especially the idea of like, even if you don't believe like these things are still real, and like it just freaks out like my nightmares where I'm like having all these scary nightmares and I'm like, are these real or is it just a dream? And it's just like the idea of that is like very spooky to me. So I feel like it's really resonating with me a lot more.
What was that number?
A 6.
A 6.
I mean, if you moved your 5 to a 6, it would be a 666. I'm just saying.
That's too scary.
Too spooky.
Nikisha.
Okay, for Skulls, I'm going to give it a 5 because the only person that I was like, what the hell are you doing, was really kind of the brother. And I guess the mom communicating too, because she wasn't communicating. Although she had the diary. We didn't even talk about that. And it's like, girl, you can write this down, but you can't say these things to your kids.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah, that was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was crazy. Scares, I gave it a 4. If I had watched this without watching the other stuff that I had watched before, then it probably would have been a little lower, but it was just a lot of gore and it was just a little too much for me. So
Yeah.
a 4. And Shakes, I'm just going to go with my initial feeling and I'll give it a 2. So you can put first watch in parentheses for Nikisha. But Shakes is a 2 for me.
Sure. I gave this a 6 for Skulls because I tend to lean on the side of like they were acting like people, like even though like they could have been better at it. Scares, I'll give this a 5. I think a lot of this is still pretty scary and it sticks with me. And 7, for Shakes, I'm giving this a 6. On Shakes because I remember that opening very vividly. I forgot a little bit of it. I remember. Oh, excuse me, just a yawn. Maybe this movie was boring. No, I mean I would give it a 6 because I also remember the finger cutting scene and stuff like that. I also think Maren Ireland's performance in this is really, really good. Yeah. Let's hear some suggestions.
Woohoo! I have 2 suggestions. Because of the 1 day at a time thing, for some reason it brought me back to Advent calendar, so I'm gonna throw that in there.
Oh man!
And also, if you like goats, VVH. That's my
Sure.
If you like goats.
If you like goats, the
Who
witch.
doesn't like goats?
Well, on that note, I'll give mine. I went the goat route, so I chose A24's Lamb.
Yes. Too funny. Jamie, what about you?
I went with movies that I feel like have really bleak endings and maybe have some possession elements. So sorry for the spoilers. I went with The Offering and The Skeleton Key.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Skeleton Key. So
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. A wide variety of options.
Yeah, for
Days,
sure, for real.
goats, unhappy endings. Wonderful. Okay, well, I think that wraps up this episode of The Dark and the Wicked. You can follow us on all social medias, the ones that Brian mentioned earlier, the TikToks, the Instagram, the Twitter, the Threads, all the things, at Talk Horror Pod, Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. So you can listen to us and watch us on YouTube. Hi again, YouTube.
What's up?
Hey, woo, horror. And then you can also, I don't know, you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Woo. Okay, fantastic. Do we have a sign off that we want to give?
Yeah,
Chop,
Jamie,
chop, chop.
could you sing your Doja Cat song again?
Chop, chop, chop.
Oh, I don't even remember what I said. Bitch, I said what I said. I'd rather be demon instead.
Yeah! That's gorgeous. I love it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.